Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Hawkesbury Local Planning Panel meeting for the 17th of November 2022. Now, this panel has been appointed by the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces and the Council to determine certain categories of development applications. My name is Louise Byrne, and I'm the chairperson for today's panel. The other panelists with me today are Juliet Grant, who's an expert member, Ian Hunt, who's an expert member, and Paul Rogers, who is the community member.
Good morning.
Good morning, panel members. Before I go any further, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Darug people, the elders past, present and emerging, and pay our respects to them. As a courtesy to others, please keep your microphones on mute at all times unless I call on you to speak. Now, as you're aware, the meeting is being audio-visually recorded, and the audio recording will be via podcast on the Council's website. Any part of the meeting that is held in a closed session will not be recorded. Now, by a couple of formal matters that firstly, in terms of the Privacy and Personal Information Protection Act, personal information provided at the meeting will be recorded, and the provision of any information that is recorded is voluntary, and any person who does not wish to be recorded should not address the panel. Now, I'll just skip some of the information to members of the public and other persons who sometimes give and speak at these panel meetings, because today we do not have any submissions and no applications for any other persons to speak. Moving to the next important matter, and that is that under the panel's code of conduct, panel members are required to disclose any pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests in relation to matters on today's agenda, and each panelist has completed disclosure forms. I personally declare that I have no conflicts of interest in relation to today's agenda, and I now ask each panel member to confirm the same. Firstly, Juliet Grant.
No conflict, Louise.
Ian Hunt.
No conflicts at all, thank you.
Paul Rogers.
No conflicts at all, thank you.
Thank you, panel members. Now, the panel deals with items in agenda order, and of course today we only have one item. The panel is familiar with each site. Sorry, I'll correct that, is familiar with the site of today's agenda item and has read the assessment report prepared by the council officer, and have read any other documents that have been filed with the DA available on council's website as are relevant to the panel's determination today. Now, we have no persons registered to speak, as I said, so I'll skip those instructions. Now, I'll just say formally anyway that for the item on the agenda, once any discussion has occurred between the panel and the council officers who are present, the panel will adjourn into closed session to deliberate, and generally the panel will resume the meeting to announce its decision in public. And I believe that will happen today, but as the panel meeting progresses, that may change. But what's important is that the determination of the panel will be confirmed in the official minutes, which will be available on the council's website most likely by the next Thursday. Okay, so today our agenda item is the determination of a DA number 0182/22, which is for a subdivision, a Torrens title subdivision to create a residential lot and public recreation lot. Now, I should say at the outset, the reason for referral to the panel is that the subject site is owned by council, and council is the proponent for the development application. The land is described as lot 6028 DP 1169449. The property address is 7 Fernandale Drive, Pitt Town. And I'm going to let the assessing officer, Mr. Andrew Johnston, just briefly outline to the meeting what the development is about and the background. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, the proposals for a 2-lot Torrens title subdivision to create a lot identified as proposed lot 1. That's what was described as a residential lot, and then proposed lot 2, which is a public recreation lot that is to form a part of Fernandale Park. Well, it is to form Fernandale Park. This land is owned by council. It was created and dedicated to council as part of a previous subdivision within Pitt Town, as a part of the Fernandale precinct. That land has been subject to planning proposals and LEP and a LEP amendment to partially rezone the land, partially reclassify the land that is to form proposed lot 1 to be operational land, retain the remaining area as community land, and to establish a minimum lot size control of 4,000 square meters to the eastern portion of the land. So the portion of the land that is zoned RU2 rural landscape. The proposal is generally consistent with the relevant planning controls, in particular the minimum lot size control that applies to the RU2 zone land. It's also consistent with the adopted plan of management for Fernandale Park. This plan of management indicates that a community centre and community hub is to be located within the Fernandale Park allotment. The application was subject to notification. No submissions were received. It was also defined as integrated development on account of portions of the land being bushfire prone land. The application was therefore referred to the RFS for comment, and they have subsequently issued their general terms of approval. Therefore, as detailed in the report, I have recommended the application for conditional approval.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Now, Andrew Kearns, forgive me for not knowing exactly what your title is, Andrew. I'll let you tell the meeting that. We also have in our meeting Andrew Kearns, and we have Stephen Chong. Stephen, can you just say what your role is before I go to Andrew?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's Manager Development Assessment.
Thank you, Stephen. And Andrew Kearns?
I'm Council's Manager Strategic Planning.
Okay. Did you want to add anything about just the history of this application and the reasons for why it is being, in effect, hived off from the parkland area of Fernandale Park?
Just, I guess, adding to Andrew's sort of briefing of the panel there in that respect is obviously highlighting that council has gone through a master plan process in terms of Fernandale Park, and that undertook periods of engagement with the community, public exhibition, public hearings in regard to developing that master plan, which was always based, that process was based on locating the community centre site on the larger proposed lot 2 site. So with the bulk of the remaining park facilities on that proposed lot. So So it was always, so that engagement with the community was always based on that premises of locating that community centre site on the larger site. And that's obviously engaged extensively with the community, and I guess particularly through the likes of the Pitt Town Progress Association as part of that engagement work. There was also the process that the council undertook in terms of its LEP amendment, recent planning proposal that dealt with the land in terms of its classification and the zoning of the proposed park. There was obviously public exhibition for that, and a public hearing also associated with that. And that was all undertaken on the basis of the community centre site being located on the larger portion of the land.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to ask each panel member if they have any questions or anything further they'd like fleshed out. And either Andrew Johnson or Andrew Kearns can answer them. I don't think both of you need to speak, but we have a little bit of luxury of time today because we only have one item, so feel free, but I will obviously control the meeting as we move along. So Paul Rogers, the community member, have you got anything that you wanted to ask in respect of this
Yes, thank you,
proposed
Madam
amendment?
Chair. Just some further clarification, if you would. Being a citizen of the Hawkesbury and having gone through a number of floods and being aware of particular issues associated with Pitt Town over the years, being effectively an island in itself, what can you confirm that the council has given proper consideration and due consideration over a period of time, and that the community in itself has been informed of those deliberations, that this proposal is not a land grab, and that effectively the provision of the community facility in itself meets the needs and expectations of the community, and the additional land is in effect surplus to requirements, and that there is no actual further community intent to use it for community purposes, and this is an appropriate course to resolve that in the interests of the overall Hawkesbury community. I think the community in Pitt Town is just sensitive to issues of being promised one thing for so long, and the terms of delivery can be so frustrating. So can I just have a point of clarification as to what levels of inquiry, what levels of community engagement, and are they aware of the intentions of doing what's been proposed here? And any feedback would be appreciated. Thank you.
So I'll touch obviously in terms of the community engagement side of things there. So as I highlighted just before, there's through the whole master plan process that council undertook for Fernandale Park, there was extensive engagement that we undertook with the community to, I guess, get their ideas and thoughts in terms of that Fernandale Park and what types of facilities should be in there. As part of that process, the community centre was very much on the agenda in terms of locating that community centre on the larger portion of the site, as opposed to the smaller part where it was originally planned. So engagement, exhibition, public hearings, all undertaken as part of that, and the views of the community fully incorporated as part of that, the adoption of that master plan. And then also similarly with the planning proposal that council recently or relatively recently considered with respect to the land classification and zoning of the park lot. That obviously underwent a period of public exhibition and public hearing, and that was all on the basis of the community centre site being located on the larger portion. And then maybe Andrew might want to just touch on the flooding, the considerations of flooding in terms of the application itself.
Okay, well, I'll just pause there. Ian Hunt, did you have a specific question on the flooding that you'd like the assessing officer, Andrew Johnston, to address?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have three questions regarding flooding. Firstly, whether any of the land that's the subject of the proposal was inundated during the recent flooding events. Secondly, whether the proposed siting of the community centre is vulnerable to isolation from flooding. And thirdly, whether the council has been reviewing the veracity of the 100-year flood level criterion.
Okay, Andrew, if you can answer, and if you want to reference the report that's before the meeting today and is in public, in the public domain, that's helpful.
Thank you. The issue of flooding is addressed in my report, page 14. Just generally, the adopted 100-year flood level for the area 17.3 meters AHD. The recent flooding, or the flooding that's occurred over the last 2 years, was essentially equivalent to a 20-year flood event. So whilst there may have been some affectation to portions of the larger Fernandel Park site on account of it being lower and accommodating a basin, the proposed lot 1, the residential lot, that was not impacted by those flooding events. In terms of that proposed lot 1, the majority of the site is located above the adopted 100-year flood level. Likewise, in terms of proposed lot 2 and the area identified to accommodate the community centre in the Fernandel Park plan of management, that area to accommodate the community centre and community hub is generally above that 100-year flood level. So the area north of proposed lot 1 is has areas of like above 17 meters AHD up to 20. So that's the area where obviously it's subject to a development application, but there is an area available there above that adopted 100-year flood level. In terms of flooding and being isolated, there is area to the north that is located above the 100-year flood level. So the area of the community centre, and also the house, if they were to travel, if occupants or residents that may be using the facility, if they were to travel north along Stables Street, you could get north and ultimately to Wells Street, which is in the longer term, that forms part of the flood evacuation route. Andrew Kearns, was there anything that you wish to add?
I'll just add in terms of the floodplain level at 17.3 metres in this location is obviously based on the best available data that the council has available at the present time. We obviously have our Hawkesbury floodplain risk management study and plan that was originally created in 2012. There's also Infrastructure New South Wales has undertaken further flood study work in the Hawkesbury and Nepean Valley as part of their Resilient Valley, Resilient Communities strategy. And they released the Hawkesbury Nepean Regional Flood Study in 2019, which didn't change the 1 in 100-year flood level in this location. They are undertaking further work at present in terms of developing what's known as the 2D flood model of the valley, but the results of that are expected to be released to the public in the coming year. Yeah.
All right, that's is that satisfactory, Ian, as to your
Yes, thank you, Chair. That's answered my questions very well indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much from Andrew and Andrew, the council officers. That was very helpful. Juliet Grant, have you got any questions of those present?
Yes, thank you, Louise. Andrew Johnston, just picking up in your report, obviously this sort of development of the Pitt-Town area has got a long history and originated with a Part 3A a concept approval initially. The report talks about the fact that if subsequent projects and DAs need to be consistent as a consequence of the EP&A regs, that we need to be consistent with that concept plan. Can you just talk a little bit about what the concept plan envisaged for this site, and how this either supports that outcome as noted in your report?
Thank you. In terms of the Part 3A approval, it essentially approved a master plan for the development of certain precincts within the wider Pitt Town residential precinct. In addition to the master plan, there were a series of commitments that apply to certain precincts. So those commitments don't apply to this particular area or this land, but the concept, the master plan does, and so it shows that the area that corresponds to proposed lot 2 is to be open space, so it's shown in green, and then the area that is to essentially proposed lot 1, so the residential lot, on the master plan it's shown in pink, and it's shown as the same size as what's proposed. So in terms of the requirements for council and the determination authority, that essentially things have to be generally consistent with the Part 3A approval, and by virtue of the layout and the designation or classification of this land being consistent with the master plan, I think the panel can be confident that it's generally consistent with the Part 3A approval.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any? I don't have any questions myself. Thank you to the panel members for discussing those issues, and thank you to the council officers in their answers. Does anyone want to say anything further now? Well, I think that we can adjourn to consider the development application, and we'll come back. And Andrew Kearns, we'll come back to public session after that, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I just ask if the council officers have a quick look around council chambers? There's nobody out there loitering with a desire to make any representations, are there? I hate to close the doors on them in case they were out there. Nobody there?
No, nobody here. Yeah.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much,
Thank you.
Paul Rogers, for that.
So, stuff happens.
Welcome back, everyone, to the live streaming of this panel meeting this morning. The panel was unanimous in approving DA 0182/22, which is for subdivision, Torrens Title subdivision, to create a residential lot and public recreation lot. The property address being 7 Fernadell Drive, Pitt Town, New South Wales 2756. And I'll read out, for the purposes of the meeting, the reasons for decision as follows: that the application be approved on the 17th of November 2022 on the grounds outlined in the report, and in particular, I note the following 6 reasons. 1, the proposed development is permissible under the Hawkesbury Local Environmental Plan 2012. 2, the proposed subdivision satisfies the minimum lot size controls of clause 4.1 sub 2 and lot size map of the Hawkesbury Local Environmental Plan 2012. 3, the proposal is generally consistent with the Hawkesbury LEP 2012, relevant planning instruments, Hawkesbury DCP 2002, and policies that apply to the development. 4, the proposed development is consistent with the terms of the relevant Part 3A approval. 5, the proposal is categorised as integrated development and general terms of approval have been issued by the Rural Fire Service. 6, the proposal was notified in accordance with the Hawkesbury DCP 2002 and Hawkesbury Community Participation Plan, and no submissions were received. I thank the council officers and the planning panel members for their assistance today, and the meeting can now be closed. Thank you.